If you've been holding everything together for a long time, you probably became very good at explaining yourself, explaining why you're tired, explaining why you can't attend, explaining why you made a decision, explaining why you need space. You learn to make your boundaries understandable. But here's something many strong women slowly realize. You don't need to explain your boundaries in order to be allowed to have them. A boundary is not a debate. It is not a performance. It is not a request for approval. It is simply clarity. And if you've lived in spaces where your decisions were revisited, questioned, subtly pushed against, you may have learned that explaining yourself felt safer than standing firm. I remember a time when I'd already made a decision about something important. I'd thought it through. I'd weighed it up. I felt calm about it. But it kept being brought back to me. Are you sure? Have you checked? You should reconsider. And each time it was asked, something subtle happened inside me. I started doubting myself. I started wondering if I'd missed something. I started defending a decision I'd already made. Not because it was unclear, but because it was being reopened. And I realized something important. When you keep explaining a settled boundary, you slowly erode your own certainty. So instead of re-arguing it, I began responding with, I've already decided. No extra paragraphs, no emotional charge, just completion. That shift was small, but internally it was powerful. Because over-explaining often isn't about communication. It's about anxiety. Anxiety about being misunderstood. Anxiety about being seen as selfish. Anxiety about conflict. Anxiety about losing connection. So we add context. We soften our tone, we justify, we over-accommodate. But clarity does not require excess explanation. Let's make this practical. You don't need to say, oh, I'm so sorry. I've just had a really busy week and I'm overwhelmed and I probably shouldn't, but I feel bad. And maybe next time. You can say, I'm not available this weekend. You don't need to say, I just think with everything going on and with the kids and work and my health and finances. You can say, that doesn't work for me. You don't need to defend why you won't tolerate disrespect. You can say, I won't continue this conversation if it stays in this tone. You don't need to justify resting. You can say, I'm taking the evening to myself. You don't need to explain why repeated questioning feels destabilizing. You can say, I've already answered that. Boundaries become complicated when we believe they must be accepted to be valid. They don't. They only need to be clear. Now, this doesn't mean you become rigid or cold. Boundaries don't close you off. They stop you from slowly disappearing. There's a difference between explaining for connection and explaining for permission. Connection says, I want you to understand me. Permission says, please don't withdraw from me. If someone respects you, your boundary will not require courtroom defense. And if someone repeatedly needs you to justify your limits, that is information. When you stop over-explaining, some people may push harder. Not because you are wrong, but because the dynamic is shifting. If you've always been the accommodator, the mediator, the one who absorbs discomfort so others don't have to, your calm no may feel unfamiliar to people. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. It means you are evolving. And here's something that took me years to understand. When you over-explain your boundary, you signal uncertainty. When you state your boundary calmly and stop talking, you signal self-trust. And self-trust is quiet. It doesn't argue. It doesn't spiral. It doesn't chase validation. It simply stands. You're allowed to say less. You're allowed to repeat yourself once and then stop. You're allowed to protect your nervous system. You're allowed to end conversations that circle. You're allowed to choose peace over persuasion. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with hinges. They show people how to enter your life respectfully. And the people who value you will adjust. The people who don't will reveal themselves. Either way, you gain clarity. If you've been holding everything together for a long time, this may be your next layer of strength. Not doing more, not explaining more, not proving more, but standing quietly in your decisions. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You only need to honor them. And that is enough.